Hello, 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 and welcome to another One Lion of Code. I am One Lion. I spy a TBD gamer in chat. Happy Friday to you. To those of you that are new here, today is Friday, and Fridays on this channel are community days. And community days are days in which I invite you, the community, into a voice channel in Discord if you're interested in that. Where you can let me know that you are waiting in a waiting room by typing !waiting in chat. Then I will pull you into the stream room, which is a channel that is hidden, and it's a place where if I pull you in there, your voice will come through on the stream. I love that we're getting ads on window swap. Oh, it's fantastic, and we can't do anything about them, can we? I wonder if we can, give me a second. I'm going to see if I can make that go away. Open a window somewhere in the world. Poop. I have to wait until it gives me an ad in that. But once it does, then I'll write some CSS. But yeah, that's Fridays. If you aren't interested in having your voice come through on the stream, but you are interested in participating in community day, there are words somewhere in here, then you are welcome to do so in chat. On Fridays, I let you steer the conversations. Sometimes I do have things that I would like to talk about, but today's not one of those days. I don't have anything in mind. I don't have anything pressing. No situations that happened recently that I want to complain about and try to get an echo chamber going on, or get someone to tell me that it's actually not like that. It's a completely different way, and I should stop thinking about it the way that I have been. But anyway, I have none of that today. Today's been a good day so far, except for one hiccup. When I normally I've been starting off my mornings over there on the couch and just burning through some work, listening in on TBD Gamer's stream, which I'll do a shout out for him here shortly, and just enjoying my time with him, hanging out on his channel. But after exercise, then I usually come to my computer. I do the thumbnail for the previous stream's video, post it to YouTube, and continue working on my regular work. But while I was listening to Big Gamey's stream, I was starting to hook up my Bluetooth headphones, and as I was doing that, I found out that my Bluetooth device was no longer showing. You know how in the Windows, here, I'll take a screenshot. Give me a snip of an area that I draw. Oh. This. Okay. There it is. Come on. You can do the thing. Got it. Okay, so you know how in the taskbar you have the little pop-up thingy when you click down there, at least in Windows 11, that gives you your little picker? Well, this was gone. This was just missing. This is like, I don't exist. I'm not real. And I had recently done a Windows update, so I was doing things like running the Windows troubleshooter, letting it turn off and on my Bluetooth, and it says it failed to do so. Actually, no, it said it was successful in starting my Bluetooth adapter, but in Device Manager, this was also missing. This was gone. This was invisible. And I was like, no. So I tried a few things. I uninstalled the network adapter since it's a Bluetooth wireless NIC combo thing. I restarted the computer about 6 or 7 times. I shut down the computer and cold start that way, but it wasn't a full cold start. And the most recent thing that I did was uninstall the NIC again, the drivers for the NIC, and did a full power cycle, which is where you turn the PC off, unplug it with the switch still in the connected state, and then hold the power button until you see all of the lights turn off and it has no more power running through it. And then I restarted, and there it is. I even tried a system restore, but the system restore failed, which was also annoying. Oh. Anyway, that's it. That was my gripe for the morning. But unless and until someone else comes in that has something to talk about, I will also be working on the bot remake, which is going to open here on screen shortly, or tally. You can do it. You can do it, Visual Studio. Actually, which one did I open? Did I open Visual Studio Pro? No, I didn't. I opened Community. Okay, so I need the automated realms bot open for reference, which is our existing bot that is running as a service on my computer, on my local computer. Ampersand, I need the Blazor bot project open. Why are you running so slow? I just did a cold restart. You should have all the resources. Nope, that's my work product. I'm like, all right, time to get back to work. I fixed my computer issues and I'm going to be focused on getting this project done. Hello, Stony Panda. Konnichiwa. Annyeonghaseyo. Hola. Bonjour. All of the hellos in all of the languages. Okay. Would you open up the picker? And let's try clicking on the right project this time. Selam. From Turkish. Not in Dutch. Hallo. Hello, Zoftas and Software. So many amazing people to shout out. Let's start with a TBD Gamer shout out. He was the first one to speak today. TBD Gamer. He is a application developer working on a pretty large platform. It's going to be an amazing product. I just know it. It's going to be great. I want to use it very, very soon. Yes, definitely Blazor. I want to use this product, but it's a project planning application with project management stuff planned. That's fun. And he's using a ton of really interesting technologies. It's all .NET. Yeah, no Blazor though, which is completely okay. He's using Angular for the front end of that project. No. Man, SiriBot is doing really good. I need to be careful. It's doing really good at blocking. Actually, this is just AutoMod from YouTube, from Twitch. Man, that's really good. Anyway, yes, Stony Panda, we are definitely still working in Blazor. I am going to do my bot in Blazor. My bot remake in Blazor, but right now the thing that I've been trying to focus on with this remake is all of the backend services. I do have the project structure created for everything. I have the shared folder, which is going to be all of the models and the interface abstractions, base models, the base classes, and all that stuff, as well as the services that are going to be the ones running the brains of the bot. And those services are going to include things like a Twitch bot and a Discord bot, and I guess a YouTube bot. I haven't done anything with YouTube. And why are you here and not in abstractions? Removing that. Why didn't that move? Why? Move. How confusing. We'll just do it on disc. It'll be fine. DVD is in the channel, so I will be pulling you into the stream room in 4, 3, 2, 1. I missed.
Hello.
Hi.
What
I have
happened
the
then?
best aim ever. That's great. Oh, I don't have my camera turned on. So how are you this wonderful morning?
I'm good. I'm enjoying my week off work.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You not missed. You didn't stream a couple days last week, but then you had this week off.
Yeah.
Until Thursday, until yesterday. I thought it was until yesterday.
No, I had the entire week off. I bought because we got Monday off as well, so I figured I'd go for a long time off work.
Awesome.
Get a break.
Now, is this a mandatory time off where it's like you aren't allowed to bill for that amount of period, or?
No, just general PTO. So no. So
very cool.
Just taking the time.
Awesome.
Using it.
Well, it's good to hear that you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Just I haven't really done very much either, which is I feel a bit wasteful in that respect.
Yeah, it is difficult for me too to take time off. I do feel a lot of guilt on myself. Like I put that pressure on myself.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to do, and then I'm just like, if I take that time off, the work is still going to be there waiting for me, and I want to overperform myself. I want to beat my previous record.
Yeah, I get that. I just think it's very important to make sure you take time and step away from the stuff that stresses you out and causes you the most challenges.
That's interesting for me. My level of stress, like, I don't know. I've heard stories or things that people say that there is a good kind of stress that, is healthy. And I kind of feel that from doing software dev, even though I get like really frustrated on a problem that I'm stuck on, that I'm like, I know I'm doing this right. What's going on? And then I'll get angry, I'll get frustrated, and then I solve it. And then there's this boost and this kick that's just like, oh, that feels really good. I want to do that again. Let's find something else to be frustrated by.
Yeah.
I also struggle to take a break from that because I enjoy it too much.
I guess I'm in a position where my role right now doesn't involve writing any software. I basically have to figure out how to get things on track and get the company to agree to align on things. So my stress comes from, is it even possible to do some of those things? And is it possible to get people to do what I want them to do? Right?
So it feels like pulling ox through mud.
Yeah. So I'm not, if I was writing software, I'd probably take less PTO because I'd be focused on writing software, but I don't feel that, I never felt that way in quite a while, that, taking time off is going to make a big impact. And they're just going to use that. They're going to use that as a reason, like to get more work out of me. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna take the time off and step away and, disconnect.
Yeah, it's still really cool to hear about it though. Hi, Tyron. Tyron says, I don't get frustrated. To my brain, it's the same as solving a physical puzzle on the table, searching for the correct piece, etc., like doing a Sudoku, etc. Just mental fun. The thing is that the fun for me comes from getting frustrated at the problem and then figuring it out and then having that relief that it's like, oh man, it's figured out.
And if I was writing software, if my day-to-day was actually solving problems that way, I would take less PTO. I have done in the past because I love doing that same thing. I'm no different in that respect. It's just my job.
I had a feeling
He's not doing that anymore. Right? I'm not a regular software developer anymore.
But you are, because you get to do it for 2 hours every weekday morning.
True. Yeah, that's my my highlight is my stream. So
my highlight is your stream.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it's and I'm in that position because I want to be, right? Because I feel that my talents are best suited, or my effort is best focused on getting other developers to productivity. So whether that sounds arrogant or not, I'm not sure, but it's like that's my focus right now. But I'm not going to do any good if I'm frustrated because the business doesn't want to do what I'm asking them to do. And I get just irritated at that because I can't change what is. So I'm going to take the time I need to relax and step away every now and then.
Yeah. Speaking of relaxing and stepping away, I think, well, no, this is actually twofold. So next week, or a couple weeks from now, I'm going to be driving out into the mountains and hanging out with my wife there, going for a walk, probably on a trail. But I also have to call in for jury duty starting this evening to find out if I need to go in and report. So next week's schedule is going to be iffy.
I recently did that. I had to call in every day and check.
This one says that I have to call in on Friday, August 30th, Friday, September 6th, Friday, September 13th, Friday, September 20th, and Friday, September 27th. And I'm like, you guys just really, really want to try to get me there.
So here it was what's it got? I had to call in on 2 weeks before I had to do an online course to learn about jury duty. And then I had to call in on the Sunday night and they tell me whether I was needed for Monday. And then on Monday, they basically texted me every day after that and told me whether I was. So I was waiting for like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon to come around every day, like nervously, because for a solid week, they messaged me every single day to tell me whether I'd been selected.
Yeah, I've had to go in and sit on you sit in the jury seats, and then the lawyers go through and ask each person if they have a reason that they should be excused, and then they ask them other questions. And I'm always like, I got a poop ton of work and you're taking me away from it. And of course, work isn't a good reason, but I'm like, if you take me away from work, I'll be thinking about work and trying to find the quickest way to get done with this process. So they usually dismiss me.
Well, because they don't want someone that's not engaged with the process, right?
Yeah. But, it's like it's a cool idea, but like it would be nice if, not it should be. I'm sure it's being done the way that it should be done, but it would be nice if there was a volunteer service where people could opt into being a person that could be selected for jury duty. I know not many people would, but you kind of think that about, let's say, our army, for example, which is all volunteer at the moment. And we have enough people for that.
D-flip.
It's called voting.
So when I first moved,
have to do with jury duty?
What?
Anyway, go ahead.
When I first moved to the US, before I became a citizen, I got a jury duty summons, and I checked the box, not a citizen. and sent the form back, and I've not been called since. And my wife's she's had summons like 3 or 4 times in the 15 years in between, and I finally got my first one this year. And I was willing to do it, but the problem is that the way that our society works these days, taking that time out of work, etc., it can be damaging because our employers don't always account for it. So they need to figure out a
yeah. And now, like being a small business owner, it really is going to impact, because if I can't bill for those hours, then it's not going to be whatever their weekly compensation is.
Yeah.
It's quite a bit more than that per hour.
Yeah. Actually, Deflux, I got called before I'd even been allowed to vote because I wasn't a citizen. So I got summoned because I was a homeowner.
That's kind of
I wasn't allowed to vote.
Like, do you actually get put on the you're gonna get selected for jury duty, or possibly selected for jury duty when you become a registered voter?
It's because they know about your name. It's the same like when I learned that just because I became a citizen doesn't mean Social Security knows I'm a citizen. So I had to go to Social Security and tell them I'm a citizen and prove to them I am, because the systems don't all talk to each other, right? They don't know who's what, and that's kind of one of the things that is controversial, right? Who should know what when about who, right? But yeah, it was because I was a homeowner that I got on the jury summons, but I wasn't a citizen.
Yeah. So again, it's not an opt-in process. It's like if it was specifically stated that it's an opt-in if you're registering to vote, then I wouldn't have registered to vote.
Yeah.
Because if it's both, then
I mean, you could argue that participation in society is basically.
I'm trying not to talk about that topic. You definitely can, but I have lots and lots of thoughts on
that. Is your vote, but what I'm saying is that participation in society. There you go. You've bought a house. You've done something that's participated in some way, shape, or form. There you go. You're now you can vote.
Exactly. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I think I turned my PC off multiple times. I was trying to figure out why the RGB strips on my mouse pad, gaming pad, whatever this thing is called, was at its initial solid red. And it was because I turned my PC off. I was about to be on stream wearing over-ear headphones. That would have been weird.
I haven't done that in a long time.
Yeah. I do like them. They're very comfortable, but I prefer my Bluetooth headphones during the day.
Reading my defaults, it said in the UK prior to 1972 it was different. Yeah, most of us would have never stood a chance, right, defaults?
I mean, that would be nice, because I would choose not to be an upstanding. So anything, it's not that I don't think there's value in it, and it's just the whole forcing non-social people to do social things without regard for them, because it's a system that is trying to be completely unbiased and have it be a jury of your peers and blah, 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 blah. But I am not the defendant's peer in any way, shape, or form. I don't even know them. They most likely have a personality type that is very, very different than mine, and it's hard for me to empathize or sympathize with them. Ugh. Anyway, moving on, let's get back to technology.
Absolutely. I'm down.
So, I have no idea where to go with that, but we talk about Liquid Sky. Is there anything interesting that you want to talk about with Liquid Sky?
Just the challenges that open up the more development goes into Liquid Sky, like the things around the peripheral. Like today I was like trying to figure out that changes stuff, and the more I develop of that platform, the more I realize all the little things that I could be doing, the things that I should be doing, and all the little pieces, such as, you know, I've got to the point now where it's working pretty well, right? I think it's starting to take shape, and I think it's starting to get to the vision. But then talking with Delta the other day, I realized that it needs status, it needs this, it needs that. I'm like, oh no, there's so much more development to go on to just those little things. And then I'm like, have I overcomplicated things? I mean, to some extent, I know I've overcomplicated things deliberately. But in the same, I do realize I work with and see what happens when people don't overcomplicate things, or they just try and do the simple thing. And I think that's making me more hesitant to just peel it back to the very basics and just stuff code in there, because I just realized, even with what I've done, I'm willing to change things, and I have ripped things out and replaced things, and it's taken me a day or two, but I fixed it. So I'm not sure that my day-to-day experience isn't impacting my
mental processes for making decisions with your code.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Did I help?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you got what I was saying. So yeah. But
I love helping. Speaking of that, though, you did make a comment on your stream about make a product that works first and then refactor.
Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate more on that, and then we can talk?
So I know Deflux and I have been through this conversation, and this was triggered by Rambling Geek was talking about doing something, and then he's had all these ideas, and now he's like, oh well, now it doesn't support this, and now I need to change it all. I'm like, are you building it off of those ideas, or are you building it off one idea? Like, to me, if I'm building a game library app, which is my common go-to for side project stuff, right? Am I just tracking the games? Am I, what technologies am I using to build the application? Am I trying to overthink? Am I trying to go too far? And Rambling Geek, I think, was trying to, I don't know what he was trying to build. He never actually elaborated on it, but it's a lot of legacy code is built by people trying to get to a product fast. I've experienced it. I've worked in it. I've seen what happens when people try to get to things fast. Sometimes those people are not technically sound developers. They are just, they can put things together. And those systems, they work well for the cases they were built for, while they're not busting at the seams trying to grow. But the moment they try and grow beyond. So I think if you're building a product, some care and attention is required over building your project. A side project, I think you just need to kind of get the ideas down, because if you get stuck on the minutia, it's ever more frustrating to actually work on. In fact, I keep trying to build this game library stuff as a side thing, and I'm using Blazor, and I'm like, I'm more frustrated, because I'm like, do I want to go off and spend time learning Blazor, which I'm not the biggest fan of, or do I just switch to something that I know, or do I persevere? And then I get bored of doing that, so I just stop working on it. So should I worry more about building something quickly and getting it there? Because for my game library stuff, I want to build. I have a version of it that has pricing and stuff, but I want to build it so it can hook into IGDB and hook into other resources to pull information about games, and then start to track games that I've played and start to do that.
Yeah. So essentially, you're saying that there is a certain amount, but because I'm sure we have vastly different concepts of how much time or effort should be put into that planning process for, again, work products or things that are going to market or are going to be out there, as opposed to your personal projects. Like here, I might be not really architecting this enough, but because it is well, this is what happens when it's a side project and I don't do very much design. I make a mess. So now I'm kind of like, okay, this is something that I want to put out there as an example of a bot using Blazor. So how much effort should I put into planning and structuring so that it's easily readable, easily adaptable, adoptable, etc. So for you, how much time should you be spending in learning Blazor or trying to get Blazor to do what you want it to do for your game library?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I would bet that a lot of people, I'm trying to avoid the word all. I would bet. Oh, sorry, I've just got a phone call. I'll be right back.
Yeah, we'll be here. So while he is taking his call, I will talk a little bit about what I am trying to do. So, like I said, I have a bot already running. You guys see it on stream. You've used it before. It has an LLM attached to it. You can talk to it. It'll respond to you. But like I just said, I'm trying to open source this bot since I do get asked about it on occasion, not very often, but on occasion. So in doing so, I'm like, I've been wanting to clean it up to make it easier to modify for the stream and add to and just have it be clean. So that's what I try to do on Fridays while we talk. But most of the time I stop working on the app and just get engaged with whoever we're talking with because that's so much more interesting and just, yeah, that's what Fridays are for. So that's it. That's all I have. Okay, thanks. Oh, wait, this is TwitchBot service, not client. But this is, oh, I guess this would be the server side of the TwitchBot, which is a platform service. And platform service tells everything that they need to define their own connect, disconnect, and get bot response based off of a prompt at minimum. So yeah, it's just this, I'm trying to abstract the overall bot logic so that I can have a bot for Discord, YouTube, Twitch. I guess people do live streams on TikTok, so maybe be able to add a TikTok one just by using this platform service base or any other streaming platform. And the issue for me is that something like Twitch would have other things like join a channel or listen for redemptions and then have that be the thing that we are responding to. So yeah, it's kind of difficult for me to think through. Oh man, yeah, I guess let's just talk through my current code until TBD gets back. And TBD, if you already are back, feel free to interrupt me anytime. And of course, if anyone else is also interested in doing the voice part of Community Day, you're welcome to hop into Discord. Just let me know using !waiting or just any message in chat. That way I know.
Sorry about that.
No worries. No worries at all.
Can't ignore my wife calling me.
No, definitely not. I wouldn't. So we were talking about how much time to spend learning Blazor on your current project.
Yeah, so
side project, that is.
Yeah. So I suppose for me, it comes down to, return on investment, right? If I'm doing something on a side project, it's either because I want to do something practical for myself, like build an app for tracking the game library, or I'm trying to learn it for professional development. So that's kind of my balance of how do I measure how much time should I spend, and if I'm going to get frustrated, is it going to work out? Like, I'm not looking to do Blazor anytime soon. I'm not looking to become a Blazor expert. So that time to go off and research that when I don't understand whether I'm looking at, I can't remember what I was struggling with last week particularly. But it's that's how I balance it.
Yeah, I mean, same for me. It's like in my previous position, I needed to learn a little bit of Angular, but I wasn't going to be writing anything in Angular. So I didn't spend all that much time like learning all of the ins and outs of Angular.
Yeah. I've recently learned that our sister company uses .NET with Angular. So my .NET with Angular experience is very relevant right now.
Absolutely.
So that's definitely worth keeping an eye on. But it's still.
And have you been keeping up on the current Angular ecosystem?
I've been trying to. I mean, I'm keeping Liquid Sky up to date. I've been trying to learn more about the Signal stuff and those stores and stuff. And again, I think I've got to spend some time getting to grips with idiomatic Angular. I think that's where I fall down a lot. Yeah, it's so as far as Blazor goes, it's just something that I probably shouldn't spend any time doing because I'm not using that technology and I have no intention of using that technology for anything major.
Cool. Inequality says, I've been working on Blazor server-side project for a long time. I'm happy to help with any questions. Because all of us Blazor fanboys or fangirls or whatever.
I know I'm not in the right place.
Are just like, it is such an amazing technology to use for building an app because you can do everything super easy. So we just want to.
Yeah, once you know how. Yeah, once you know how. And that's the whole topic. Idiotic Angular.
Ho ho ho, he says.
Well, in my case, definitely.
Doubtful. Your UI is actually looking pretty good. It's very smooth.
It is
understandable, easy to follow. I like it.
Yeah. So I am having fun building the application. I will say that.
Very cool.
Liquid Sky is giving me a lot of opportunity to stretch my legs on a lot of different things. I've just been procrastinating on certain things, because they're the harder problems. It will be easy to show everyone once they're there.
Show them the harder problems.
Show everyone what liquid what I intend the application to do.
I was like, it'd be easier after you were talking about the only thing that's left are the harder problems.
Because part of why I stream some of that stuff is because I think that people sometimes software development looks easy when people just throw in videos together. It can make it look relatively simple, and you can just look. And I think a lot of people I've seen this right where. And I've talked about it this last week where people have just kind of thrown something together to demonstrate something, and you can look like a complete legend by just throwing together some samples. Oh, look at what I did, and then someone goes, "Oh, well, we sold it now. You need to build it." Oh, no, it was nowhere near, and that's how legacy programs come about, right?
Yeah. All right, put that in the app. As is. This is just thrown together.
This is my quick prototype code. Yeah, but it works. We sold it to 10 customers.
We had a POC repo that just about any new feature that we did first goes through that POC repo.
Yeah.
And then pretty much just gets copy and pasted into the app. And it's like, no.
Yeah. You can look like an absolute. Yeah, you can look like an absolute legend very quickly, but I don't want to do that. So, with Liquid Sky, I'm streaming it. I'm streaming most of the difficult parts because I want to show, oh look, I'm willing to change and rip this out and change this and do that, even if it's just recording it for prosperity and no one's really paying attention to those pieces particularly. But yeah, so would you say
it's more for you? Like proving to yourself that you are flexible enough to say, or discerning enough to say, you know what, this isn't actually working. let's rip it out and go a different direction.
I think it's important for me to test that. Definitely. I think that is for me.
Because like my thing was, if I chose a direction, I'm going in that direction until it works. I wanted to change that for a long time.
Yeah, I think being willing to change and understanding the impact of the change is a very important thing. I think that's why I keep harping on the whole writing cleaner code, writing code you're willing to change, understanding the code, making sure the patterns you're following are consistent. When you see inconsistency, either understanding it or address it. There's a few areas I've found, especially this week, where I'm looking around, I'm like, oh, I've flip-flopped on how I decided to do that, which is indicative of I'm not quite sure on how I want to write something or name something. It could be something as simple as a naming.
Yeah. Like Tyron just called me out on my putting the async suffix on some of these methods. That used to be standard practice. It might still be standard practice for some places, but I'm like, just about all of my methods are async, and even if they're not, the IDE will let you know.
Yeah, that's one I definitely flip flop on. Again, sometimes I'll put async. I definitely understand if there's a non-synchronous method, a non-asynchronous method, and an asynchronous version, then absolutely async.
Yeah.
Is the way, but
which is what I think I used to have in here. Synchronous and async, but
I think these days, because of the way most of the libraries are async anyway, I don't think you have much of a choice, because it's once you're in, you're in, unless you're creating tasks and running them that way, which gets messy.
Yeah. Here's my void connect. Interesting. So now that we're talking about it, I don't even see an asynchronous connect on my original bot implementation.
Interesting.
Huh?
Is that a TwitchLib problem? You use TwitchLib, right?
Yep. I thought TwitchLib had a connect async.
Probably does. No.
Oh.
Interesting.
I don't know.
I wrote my own Twitch library, so I don't use TwitchLib at all.
Yeah, I was thinking of doing that for the bot remake, so that I'm not depending on TwitchLib, because the API is changing, or has changed for Twitch, and there's all of these updates and stuff. But at the same time, if I'm going to open source this, I may as well make it accessible and use a library that a lot of people do use.
Yeah.
thing that I would really like to see changed is the use of events, where the event is synchronous. So most of my events are event func of task at minimum. Yeah. And that way you can handle it asynchronously. Otherwise, you end up with async void in a lot of places, and you're like, I don't want that.
I've been lucky. I've avoided a lot of async specialization. Just kind of follow the pattern for the most part. And events is something I don't often use in terms of the language level events.
Oh,
obviously,
yeah,
I'm using lots of events in distributed system stuff, but they are asynchronous by their very nature. So,
I think because my UI depends a lot on updating from an external source, then I don't want to have my entire UI refreshed on every change. So I have events for specific types of changes that each page will listen for each component.
Makes sense.
But again, that could just be the nature of making it too complicated. I don't know. Wakarimasen.
I think that's a I think you can get in your own head a little bit with too complicated, because I was doing that earlier on. I was like thinking about solving a problem, and everything I was doing, I kept worrying that I was going to overcomplicate it, but what I was doing was complicated. So is there an overcomplication? So coming back around on the
It's
whole,
the appropriate level of complication for that scenario.
get something written. Sometimes writing something and not second guessing yourself is a good way of understanding what it is you were trying to write in the first place. And hopefully, if you've got a better grasp of what it is you were writing, you probably will understand, oh, I did overcomplicate it, and now go back and fix it. And that's the piece you need to do, though. Go back and fix it.
It's a lot like writer's block. You just write whatever comes to mind, and then you see it and you're like, okay, now I can see what's wrong with it or what's overcomplicated in this case, and then make different decisions.
Yeah, I think that's it's important not to get stuck on making it perfect.
I liked that comment a lot.
What's that?
The fact that we try so hard, a lot of us do, to get it right the very first time we write it, which is a good aspiration. Like Peter Life Coding would call it aspirational programming, to try to get everything right from the very beginning so you don't have anything to clean up. But if you are doing that, you really are extending your development time by an unproportionate amount for how much you're saving in bugs and stuff. So finding that balance, I think, is going to be our theme for today. And there wasn't a question there, so I made PBD go quiet.
My wife just kindly brought me a cup of coffee as well. So
that's awesome. Super cool.
Yeah, it's a big part of why I don't really prescribe to reading a lot of books these days on people telling me how to write code, because I think that it's easy to tell people how to write code when you've done it, but sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and going into that. I think that's why we always fail. Well, we often fail when it comes to things like story pointing and planning and time estimations, because sometimes we just don't understand how difficult a problem is. We can understand the requirements, but it doesn't mean we understand how to implement the code. And I think that's what we need to get better at.
And I haven't had to do that very often at all, since I've almost always planned my own work, am accountable to myself for getting it done. Like I'll give the client a time frame and be like, it seems like it'll take this long, but I can't guarantee that. And they're super flexible when I say that. But when I was working at Sagetti, there was all right, what are you going to do in this 3-month release cycle? What features are going to be done? How long are each of those features going to take? How long are these bugs going to take to fix? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah. But you know, things like unit testing and better integration testing and a whole sorts of other stuff, they help, but they're very hard to sell to the business, and they take time. And whether that's calculable or not, I don't know. But we don't often focus on those practices enough at the right time. And sticking them in afterwards doesn't necessarily help us.
Unit testing, just write code. Real quick, Tyron said, one mantra I have when designing APIs and interfaces is make it easy to do the right thing and hard to do the wrong thing. I really like that too. Inequality responded saying, great mantra. I've heard similar ideas like pit of success, make it easy for the developer to fall into the successful path. The path of least resistance should be the right path. Kind of thing. I like that.
So I'm I believe that a lot of it comes down to just good, consistent practices in the code base. When things are wrong, change them as a team, agree on them as a team to make sure that everyone understands why you're changing something. But I've seen what happens when people try and dictate through very tight design how developers should code without any flexibility in the application. And that doesn't work because when a business situation comes along, it doesn't fit in this very tight framework of how code should be written. Developers will solve the problem one way or another. And then you've got a code base that's wildly different than what it should be. So
I got to experience that on a team where there was one person whose ideas were the idea to go with. I was like, something that doesn't really come up all that. Oh, Mojo. Something that doesn't come up as often is, and this is just because I'm interested in this kind of thing, is considering the personality types of each team member so that you can utilize their strengths and weaknesses. So for example, if you're using Myers-Briggs, an INTJ is more likely to consider all of the realm of possibilities of what users are likely to do to mess up or to go the wrong way. So they are probably really good at planning. Here are what Tyron said, here are the things we can do to make it easy to do the right thing and difficult to do the wrong thing. But that's also, it's a double-edged sword because it's also, we think of all of the possible things that a user could do and judge that if it has a 2% likelihood of happening, we should develop and write code to protect against that when it's not always. Where my ENTP debaters, Mojo. Nice.
I've met so many developers that are like, well, what if we need to write this code? What if this happens? Right. What if they think about this? What if this? What if that? And they get super focused on the what ifs to the point where they start writing them in the code. And I'm like, well, we don't know if that's going to happen. We don't know if that's going to happen. So I've always butted heads with those people because I'm like, we don't know if we need it or not. Well, we might do. They might do this. Like, well, then let's find out if it does happen before we start writing it. Because again, writing lies in your code is not helpful to anyone if they come and look at the code, because now it says it can happen, and it does happen because you wrote the code that says it can happen. So yeah.
And then again, go ahead.
In your experience, is it that what ifs lead to more code? Because I just got off a call about this feature I developed last year, and it was like there were so many what ifs for this specific case where it actually like ended up being a lot less code, because I kind of made it a very flexible feature that does the job, and it does the job well, it sounds like, or it's what I've been told. I didn't know it was being used, but it made it. But yeah, does it in your experience, does it usually lead to more code?
That's for you.
From my perspective, yeah, generally, because it's a what if creates it should indicate to the team that they don't understand everything that the users can do or may do with the code. So maybe that's the time you go off and ask your product management, what happened? Have we thought about this situation? Is this a situation that can arise? And if they don't know, why write it into the code, right? Because a product manager is likely to say at that point, yeah, it could happen. Let's make sure it covers that. But again, you write that code in there to say, if the date is less than today, or if the value is less than or equal to 0, right? Every time you write that sort of code, it's just saying this can happen. And if someone comes across that code, they've got to go and look it up. So it's oftentimes adding more code to the code base, absolutely.
And the thing that I fantasize or idealize about is that if we consider them up front and then rule them out, at least we've considered it. But like there is often and I'm going to use these words, but it's hopefully not sounding like it's an attack on you. Just write the code that works and leave it at that, because that's all that needs to happen. We get code that works, we ship it. But what about the situations that we can think of that are plausible? Should we just take a little bit to think about those situations and at least determine if it is possible for this situation to happen in code? If so, should we change that code, or should we actually write some guards? Or should we just not do anything about it and let bug reports come in?
I think understanding your data validation issues, where data validation is done. If you've got an API and you have no data validation before your code, you probably need to put some validators in before you even get to your business logic, right? So that's just good practice. Like defining what are your limits is good practice for the API. So you shouldn't be, if you want a positive integer, you shouldn't be allowing negative integers, right? So you should be guarding against those being put in. If a date should only ever be in the future, right? It's part of the API description to say it should be a date in the future, not. So I think those situations are valid. Understanding the data that's coming in and the uses, I think that's a perfectly valid situation. I think if it's a case that can happen because the data allows it, but you're not sure it will happen because the usage of the system doesn't actually provide for that scenario, there's no actual realistic possibility.
There's no avenue to.
Yeah, then that's the sort of thing you need to address, and I think you should still ask the question. But I think it's one way you should understand the business rules and understand if there's actually a guard necessary. But I don't think you should necessarily write in every single scenario, because I think it's damaging.
Yeah. So again, that's where, in my opinion, the personality traits, the actual cognitive stacking of each person on the team would come into play, where there are the people that are like, yes, you told me that's possible, but it's never going to happen, and they stick to that. Whereas someone like me is like, well, if it's possible and we know about it, then why don't we just put in this little bit of code? And most of the time, the reason for that is because then we have to maintain that little bit of code every time we write a new feature and put it in for everything everywhere. When
and that will trickle
it's never
through the
going to
system.
happen.
Yeah, that sort of behavior will trickle through the system. As I refer to that, it's defensive coding. It's defending against a situation you don't know. Therefore, let's just write it in there. And it seems simple, but it's actually costly because it tells the story that can happen. I'd rather see it, trust my exception handling, trust my rollback procedures to make sure that I can't create the bad data in the first place, and be able to understand, oh, they tried to enter this data. So I think that comes down to just stronger logging and metrics in the system to understand how people are using the system. And then you try and understand that use case. Like, why did the user try and do that? Were they just trying to break it? Was there some validation that was missed? I think a lot of that sort of stuff can be done in validation, like validating an input range, or validating a date, or validating a time, or something like that. I think that's perfectly acceptable to do in validation.
And it's really difficult for me to come up with concrete examples, but there are a lot of cases where it seems like it was where I had personally thought of these scenarios that the customer might encounter, and no one else was really on board with that, but I did add in a change, and or no, I didn't add the change because it was something that they said we shouldn't do because never going to happen, or it's not important enough, and we got bugs on it and we had to fix it anyway. So the point of that is that everyone, and I'm using that full inclusive term, everyone has some personality aspects that are both beneficial to the development and planning and all of that process, and they all are important to consider, but some people are louder than others, and so their opinion will rule the team.
Yes.
Kind of thing. So I just, yeah, But the teamwork should be a combination of everyone understanding each other and you using each other's strengths and then helping each other see their weaknesses. I'm judging.
I fall foul of that a little bit in the past because normally I'm the loudest voice in the group, purely because of in the teams I've been the more experienced developer, right? So I have the loudest voice, but that's when I understand who respects my opinion and who doesn't. Because I've seen examples of basically the defensive code appearing anyway, regardless of what we've talked about, appearing anyway, but at the last minute, so that it gets pushed through as you're just being petty by holding this pull request up because you're trying to stop the pull request because you don't believe that should be there. And that code gets out there anyway. And that, I think that's a dysfunctional team when that happens, because it shouldn't be like, if you really believe it, debate me. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about that code and how
that sounds very INTP.
let's
And also Mojo probably does that.
I'll debate.
Yeah, Mojo's on the other side of that. He's like, I want to debate you on this.
Well, yeah, it's brain. It's that's why I'm the ideas guy. I mean, that's the entire personality trait summed up. But in my, like, I don't know, I cannot determine whether or not using where I currently work as an example is ever, if it's like an exceptional case or you know, a common thing. One thing that I've noticed in some of our meetings on when we're trying to plan out this whole data model is that every time we bring up one of these like very special cases, these exceptional cases that maybe 2% of users will need this feature for, it tacks on. They're trying to tack on things into the database, where we essentially just format everything in one. Well, we're not using views, so maybe that would also help. So it kind of like builds out it adds more columns to the table. But then one thing that I keep trying to stop every time it happens is when we think about these exceptional cases, then come exceptional cases to the exceptional cases. And at that point, I'm like, hey, we should probably be abstracting some of this rather than turn this into functional programming. And a good example is, so, you know, for anybody who's been in school from, you know, at some point in your life, it doesn't need to be college. Like, you're enrolled in a class.
If you've ever been in school.
Yeah. I can't say everyone. If you're in a class,
I'll just correct you.
And there's an assignment due tomorrow, chances are, or if there's just an assignment to be done, chances are everybody needs to be able to access that assignment. Now, if you have multiple versions, that's different, but like there's still the core assignment that needs to be done. And in our scenario, we are creating a record for however many students are in the class. So if it's 100 students and there's 2 assignments, there's going to be 200 records in this other table that all have the same data except for maybe 2% of the users in there. I think the actual number of people with disabilities at a university where they require like time windows that are different from the default. I think that actual number is like closer to like 8 to 10%. But because of that, like we're adding 200 records for these 100 students to these 2 assignments, and you know 90% of them, I'm just going to leave it at 90 right now, are going to have the same exact data. They're going to have the same time window. A handful of these students are going to have cases where they need an extra hour. I was trying to get us to add that to
global setting for the global setting for a class, for that student in the class, like every assignment, because like this is how the rules work at the university. They're gonna need that extra time on every assignment, so just put it on top, like put it at the when they enroll in the class, attach it to their account. Don't attach it to each individual assignment. And it was and then there were like other exceptional cases, like, oh, what if like, a student athlete, they're going to need a different time window. Like, yes, that's fine, but like, do we need to populate a database to account for every combination of student to assignment, whatever that multiplies to? And I got rolled out, so it's fine. But it just kept, in this way, it kept building more. And when I say like, it sounds like it could simplify the process, it's because like my way seemed like a cleaner way kind of to handle it. Because when you load their account, you can just like roll whatever exceptional settings they have on their account, and you don't have to go search, and you don't need to populate it with all of this information that you only actually need to know the default or something that's not the default for a handful of those cases.
Right. So yes, it does make sense what you're saying. I mean, I'm mostly followed. There was still quite a bit that seemed like you'd have to know the system in order to fully understand, but it does make sense where you just have the value that teachers would put in for a given assignment, and then individuals would have a add this amount or shift the schedule to this time per student.
Yeah.
And right now what they're doing instead is adding one record for each student for a given assignment.
Yeah.
Okay.
For each assignment.
And you're saying that there would be one record for the assignment, and all students would just reference that one record as their default, and then apply the extra conditions in the student profile.
Yeah. And to me, it keeps, I don't know, the database smaller. And, that doesn't necessarily need to be a goal, but it was two ways of handling the same thing. And in my way, there was just less complexity and less things that could break. Because one thing I've noticed with this is sometimes, we haven't been able to find out why, but we kind of do this right now. Sometimes students won't get, so we look at the assignment access table now for that class. Whenever a student needs to download an assignment, sometimes students that record isn't being populated. And if it's the default, like, and they're in the class, they should have access to it by default. But we've introduced a new place to break things, or for a bug to be introduced, or to come, for a bug to come into play. And it's kind of like, hey, like, we didn't need to do that. But I don't know where TBD knows the I pick my battles now, I guess.
Yeah. For me, that really does sound like a database redundancy. Well, not redundancy. What's the word I'm looking for? Where you repeat the same data in the same table for multiple records. And it seems like there should be one record that all of those records reference, and then anything special that overrides them gets put into this assignments table.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. Yeah.
That's a good one.
And because I mean, it was just kind of, outside of the user's account ID, all of the other data is the same, and it's being inherited from a different table. So like the due date and the assignment window date exists somewhere already, and we just kind of copy paste it over for most users, and attach their account to it. So there seems to have been and I don't know database design well enough, and what are considered, there was a dogma on it. It was a very dogmatic approach in their reasoning for wanting to do it. it wasn't necessarily consistent. Well, it might have been consistency on that one table. Like now everybody's on this table, and my whole point was like, nah, I don't know if they need to be, but consistent. I think they were saying it was more consistent. However, I again don't know database design well.
I mean, it doesn't sound like relational database stuff to me. No, archery is broken. It sounds like someone that grew up on NoSQL and is like, we just need to store every document as a record. Oh, it is up. It was probably Automated Realms' first usage. But yeah, like in NoSQL, you don't really have shared records for the most part, from what I understand. I don't know very much about NoSQL at all, but in SQL databases, you try to avoid putting the same information in multiple records, so you usually have a relational table that stores that basic information that all records reference, and then any extra things go in that second table. So yeah, I would say that it doesn't really follow, at least the way that you're describing the structure, doesn't really follow SQL database structure rules or guidelines.
There are many rules we don't follow.
Async
I'm sure.
waiting string room. It's actually synchronous deflux.
It's also push to talk as well. There you go. Oh, is that?
But yeah, there is a exclamation point waiting that you can use in the future if you don't feel like typing out the thingy. It's easier for me to see. But it looks like this.
Waiting. I like that.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Cool. So yeah, it seems like today's themes are centered around consistency and something that TBD and I were talking about at the beginning that came up multiple times, but I can't remember what it is anymore. His memory.
I have a Blazor consistency relevant question.
Okay.
The
It doesn't
most
even have to be
inconsistent part.
relevant to our current topic.
Well, I was going to say I don't want to just hop in and change the topic, but
Well, Mojo, were you finished with your thoughts? Muted. Okay, we'll say Mojo was finished with his thoughts, so he dropped.
Pulled off. Oh, he's in the
Yes.
stream waiting room. I think he had to take a call or something.
Hmm.
I was going to ask about the most consistent feature of Blazor, which is hot reload.
Okay.
And I was curious about okay. So basically, there's a repo at work where hot reload categorically never works.
Okay.
Categorically does not work whatsoever. And so I want to try and determine what is the prima facie cause of it not working. Is it certain components we're using? Is it the component libraries? Is it because we're using too many component libraries?
I think it's the IDE,
Yeah, blame your ID.
but it's my IDE, not yours.
Have you tried running .NET Watch in a separate terminal, in a separate
Yes.
command? Okay, cool.
Mhm.
And it's still the same.
I think it's nominally better, but it still is way too much on the root edits. So stuff that categorically isn't a root edit, like adding some HTML, it thinks it's a root edit.
I started noticing a pattern, and that was if it's a subcomponent that talks to the parent component in some way, whether it's through an injected class or something, it treats any UI edits made to that subcomponent as a root edit. I think that's what I'm remembering.
So a subcomponent, like if you have like a component that calls several child components.
Yeah, and one of those child components you're editing the UI for, the Razor markup or the C# code behind, then it's a root edit. Almost always.
Well, isn't all components a subcomponent of another component being the...
Yes. Yeah. But I meant one that's like actually talking to a parent component. And I'm trying to find an example of that. So my sections here, that are child components of this chain of custody record, where the child components are the ones reporting to the chain of custody record parent component, hey, I've changed some stuff and I need you to refresh all of the other components inside as well. Then if I make a change to the UI for my chain of custody analysis data component, it treats it as a root edit, even though it's not. It's just content change. And I'm going to try to prove that, see if it's true. You don't have to wait on me.
No, yeah, so I'm trying to work out. There's also a lot of, they use ISS Express.
Oh, yeah.
So they
I
use
like
it running
ISS.
locally, which I think also has a I think that has a worse record than .NET Watch or running it in Kestrel and not on Visual Studio when it comes to Part Reload as well.
I decline Mojo. I will never.
Yeah, I was gonna say Mojo does make a good point. They do really have figured it out in JS frameworks, but they should be able to figure it out over here. Hopefully, it's really a shame. I know they were gonna put out some stuff on it for .NET 9, but they pushed it back to .NET 10.
I don't know if I don't use Visual Studio because reasons. I don't know. So something Ryder added recently was a configuration for .NET Watch in the IDE, so you don't have to go to the terminal. I assume they just moved the command.
Yeah.
Does that work well? It sounds like it's Visual Studio.
It's called.
No, well, so the issue I have is both on .NET Watch and in Visual Studio.
Okay.
Redirect. Oh yeah, run web server in. And so it can either be in the terminal inside of Visual Studio, or you can have it open a PowerShell terminal.
I prefer. Does this? Yeah. Oh yeah, I'll change the setting anyway. But I usually end up creating a separate terminal anyway.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, this is just PowerShell, essentially.
Yeah, I think the external console choice is set by default because this is a new install and it has it on. I'll take it on refresh.
Here.
I don't change it.
Right click. User cigarettes.
So, do you prefer to run when you're running it from Visual Studio? Do you prefer to run it as IIS or do you prefer to run it as Kestrel?
Kestrel.
Kestrel, okay.
The only time that I run it as IIS is if I'm actually debugging.
Right.
Because it's easier to start and stop the server and show what happens if we lose server, but the app is still running.
Right.
My guess is that my internet connection reset and my IP address changed and I no longer have access to our AWS servers. That's going to take forever. I don't think I'll be able to show you an example with Remake chain of custody. But essentially, what I was hoping to get to was having the app showing and then make a change in this child component. Watch it do a root edit, which we still might be able to do, now that I think of it. And then make a change to the parent component and then watch it just do a regular hot reload.
So I guess if you're building out a particular component then, or the strategy would be to basically give it its own route and then go to that route, because then you'll be no root edits, you'll be entirely hot reloading.
Possibly, yeah. But I mean, that wouldn't do very good for styling it within the parent component, or if it needs the parent component wrapped around it. if you're doing
Right,
something
right.
like a cascading parameter.
But hopefully, I mean, whilst you say that, right, you would want, I assume, to have the ability to run, like, the way it was explained to me is like, think of Blazor components like their own methods, right, or their own like solid principle. You know, you'd want everything to be there, I assume, right? Other than like
Mm.
just like visually how it lays out in the parent. Other than that, like the actual data and so on and so on, you'll want to be able to pass that in and then send it back or whatever. Like I could think of like you would want to mock a parameter, but other than that,
I don't know that I understand. So you're saying that you've heard that a component should be a self-contained thing, essentially, right?
no. Well, I mean, because a Blazor Razor component basically is a class file, essentially, right?
Yes.
You can call it as a class file.
It is.
So you should,
class.
you should like treat it as a class file itself, like you would any other injectable service. And so solid principles would dictate you should be able to test that component or that class file on its own, either short of providing it with simulating the parameters and
Yeah,
so
and
on.
your dependency injection stuff.
Right.
Providing mocks
Yep.
or the actual implementation.
Yeah. And so
Yes.
so if I was like testing it out, by testing it out, I would like put a route to it to like debug an issue. I should still be able to mock those services or inputs or params, etc.
I would say yes.
Thinking out loud, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to figure out how this relates to the hot reload issue.
So like if you can test something on its own, you should be able to render something on its own too, by giving it a route. I guess what I'm trying to say there is like if you have a problem where like certain components can't render on their own, to me that's like a code smelt issue, right?
Possibly. I mean, like, I'm just thinking of all of the cases where I have one component that, for example, relies on UI state, where UI state is holding on to some other component, tells UI state, I've updated this particular thing, tell all other components that use that thing, in this case analyses, that the data has updated, so that they can refresh.
Yeah, that's like eventing. That's another really cool topic that I haven't quite. I've got like my head around it 90% of the way, but it's like one of those areas where there's room for improvement. I'm very tempted to import a library to do and like having a whole event side. Right now, I just use like the generic events. I think I have a problem with like how async works with it, but it would be cool to have like a library that that's like an internal. I think they actually did something with that in .NET 7 or 8, maybe, I forget. But having a library where you can like send an event, right? But it's actually like a what's it called? Like a frickin' we can replay the event.
So it's pretty much what TBD recently taught me about, which is called event sourcing, I believe.
Event sourcing.
Does that sound right, TBD? If you're still listening.
I'm listening.
So
I wasn't listening to the actual full conversation, but event sourcing is a thing.
Yeah, but that's where you're not actually changing data or anything like that. You're just recording the events for the process of changing the data, so that you can do replays of changing the data if needed and rollbacks and stuff.
Yeah, the current state is the culmination of the events that came before.
Yeah. I was thinking of possibly obtaining a library to basically simplify that, but having a what would you say? I mean, I don't know. Do you guys have a preference? I know there's like 3 or 4 out there. Hangflyer is one of them, right? Oh, what were they?
I mean, all of my events are done in state classes, essentially, where the state class is responsible for telling other components things have changed that I have. So almost everything uses I notify state changed, which I don't have in this app because this was one of the first apps. But I usually implement I notify state changed and state changing, or I notify property change. Sorry.
And you just subscribe to like a predefined event.
Yeah.
that
But
fires up.
I'm starting to really not like this because everything is an event action for notify or for notify property changed and changing, and I would prefer them to be tasks. So there is this other concept of doing actual pub sub the way that was always done in JavaScript since like 1812, and that allows for asynchronous, letting the listeners know something changed. So do whatever it is you're going to do on that.
But if you make them async, then you have to like, in order to say, for instance, you call a stateless change, then you have to then like do the whole invoke async to get it back on the main thread.
Yeah, exactly. And that is what I do. You'll see that here a lot. Wait. Actually, again, I don't know if it's going to be in this app. I don't know why I opened this one as my example. It's the one that I'm currently working on. But yeah, here's a event listener that's subscribed to this event. And because I want to get back to the main thread before doing the state has changed, because it'll say you can't refresh because you don't own this. I use the invoke async to put me on the correct thread to be able to do state has changed. Because of that, I do an await in front of it, which makes this an async void. And you will see this often. You'll see it as a case that people say it's okay to do async void in this situation.
For events specifically, that's literally the only, in the documentation, that's the only thing that's mentioned that's really allowed. Well, I just put Hangfire, which is one of those event-based libraries, into the Google machine, and the first one that pops up is an example of a .NET 8 Razor minimal web app with Hangfire, where they've used like say a more complete library to handle their event system, which I think is pretty cool. Because I have a similar thing that you have. I pass in, and I don't think I get it working very well. I think eventually I commented it out because it was having an issue or something. I'm talking about a particular side project that I have in my head, but I think it was func-task is what I end up handing in or something. So I could do async stuff, but it's really a little bit messy. Let's see, event callback now.
I think I'm back. Can you please try the login? Wait, I logged in successfully. So why did it give me an issue with not being able to connect to the database? That's weird. That's really weird. So yeah, Tyron is talking about using Redux, and that handles all of the stuff for refreshing. Because like the thing that I was doing early on, and because I was doing it early on, I've kept it and I've adjusted it a bit so it works better, but it could have been the wrong approach to begin with, is having these event actions and event tasks. So now I've changed it to event func of task for most of my new code, which means that I can have an async listener, but this might not even be the right approach to begin with for all of my property changes, or I need to notify other components that something has changed so they need to act on it.
Yeah, I do like an event of func, then I hand in like a string and a task.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it takes a parameter, then definitely.
But I think I ran into it. But that seemed to me like that way, you can do async things in there. But I did it, but I kind of didn't like it.
Okay, did that give us a root edit? Yeah, so you can see where it's doing a rebuild. Did it?
Didn't respect your outside of project terminal setting.
Oh, it did. It's just that again, I manually ran it from PowerShell. But if I push F5 or Control F5, then it would open in an external terminal. and it would be running in IIS instead of Kestrel. But again, this version of the project is super old. I've already mostly updated it to .NET 8, blah, blah, blah. It was just the easiest one for me to reach for to show the rude edits. Yeah. So it actually did do a full rebuild. But I don't see the text that I just added. Thank you so much for the raid. Oh, let me greet these kind people. Catboy Raid has come in to raid and stuff. Thank you so much for bringing your raid here. You caught us in the middle of a community day stream where we have a few people in a Discord voice channel talking with us about various things. Currently, we're talking about hot or warm reload in Blazor, as well as a few other things that I kind of lost track of, Deflux. But typically on our stream, we do Blazor development on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then on Fridays is community day. That's where we're at. Welcome in. So tell us what you were doing on your channel, Catboy. I'm sorry, will the fool learn? I said it was a Catboy raid. It's because his name is their name is Catboy Raid. And it's will the fool learn name that raided us.
I was equally confused.
Learning Python using boot.dev. Awesome.
Ooh, nice.
Well, I'm going to give you a follow. And did you already do a shout out? Duka. Shout out. Will the fool learn?
Got two shout outs. Too cool indeed. I'll give a follow.
My name is Raiden, but everyone calls me Raid. That's cool. Like your real name is Raiden? That's pretty awesome. And Will the Fool Learn said, I do a bit of variety with gaming and art related stuff later in the day, but coding mornings. Well, I look forward to catching your streams because I love watching developers do development on Twitch. We have a pretty nice community here. Most of us are .NET devs. So, yeah. I don't know what else to say. Did I miss anything? I didn't actually say hi to Peter, but hi. I was just reading your stuff. I've always wanted to try event sourcing, but never needed it. I've heard good stories. TBD was using it, and that's where I learned about it. And I was like, I have all of these forms where if you load something into them and you make changes, it kind of seemed like the appropriate place to do event sourcing, where I don't want to change the underlying record and I want to be able to undo changes that I did. So it would make sense to record the changing of this value as an event. And then the next thing that I did was change this value. And then if I Control Z or push some undo button, it takes me back. But it doesn't change the underlying record value until I commit it. Kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah. One of the things that I kind of like to do that's probably not that, I don't know, I've never really put in the gauntlet of, walking it out. So maybe it's a mistake, I don't know. But I always like to, as soon as someone starts filling out a form, I like to save every time they click out of, they go to between the cells. And then I recall whether or not they actually submitted it or not. Outside of, obviously validation, is there anything that would dissuade that? But I like to have that so the app can crash, they can refresh, they can come back the next day and finish the form, as opposed to then filling it all out, all 50 items, then pressing submit, and it breaks and they lose everything.
Well, what is this?
What one of the questions I have that I try to get my head around it also as well is rendering. If I put a breakpoint on something, I put a breakpoint on the installers method on on something that's rendered on the on a page, it seems to render 3 times. I'm not sure if that is
The
correct.
uninitialized
Yeah.
gets hit 3 times,
Yeah.
then that is most likely that the component is getting unloaded in the parent and reloaded, because that shouldn't happen.
Hmm. Is that because I'm automatically filling a parameter?
No,
No.
not at all.
So when you say
no matter what you do, if you have the component only once in the parent component, the uninitialize is only going to hit once, no matter when you're setting the parameter or anything like that. The only things that get called multiple times are on after render or on after render async.
Maybe it is on after render then. I've got a breakpoint. Yeah, maybe it is on after render then. Is that perhaps being rendered 3 times?
Yeah, that gets called multiple times for sure. That gets called every single time the pretty much state is changed or should render gets set to true, and then the page re-renders, and that sometimes, it depends on where you're using your parameters, but that will sometimes trigger a re-render of the content and then call on after render.
If I call status change, that would be running it, right?
Yes, absolutely. So anytime you call status change somewhere else, that'll do it. But if you call status change on after render, then you're going to be in an infinite loop where I just finished rendering, status changed.
Yeah, it's possible that I have like a parent component that's like loading data in and then calling status change, which causes then my breakpoint to hit. That's probably my issue.
Yeah. And I definitely had done that a lot when I was first learning about status change, because it's like, how do I get this information to update? Oh, call status change. So you learn early on that you need to call status change anytime you change the value of a variable or something, when that's not necessarily the case. So you manually call status change when you don't really need to.
So that's another area where again, it seems like with that particular project thinking about at work, that it doesn't matter what you change, it will only ever re-render when you call status changed. I'm trying to learn a little bit of like, why that's happening that way, or why we can't just,
So if the component itself is the one that knows about the variable, so here analyses is an IEnumerable, then and that's used here in this for each or if null. If I change the value of analyses, because UI state.coc record.analysis groups changed, it doesn't know about analysis groups, so I might need to call the state is changed if analysis groups on this external class gets changed. But I think that because this is referencing it and the component itself is using the thing that is referencing the analysis group, changes made to this will automatically get picked up, and then the re-renders will happen for only those small sections instead of the full component. Correct. I didn't know that I still had the closed captions plugin. I used to have to go to a website, and then the website wasn't very good at correctly interpreting the things that I said. Oh, I'm falling behind on chat. But yeah, so the short of it is, if you have a variable declared within a component, that variable is the one that's being used in your UI, and you make changes to that variable, to the properties of it, then you shouldn't have to manually call status changed. It's only if something external is changing the value of it, and maybe even list items individually.
List of items individually? Say that again?
Yeah. Ooh,
I mean, if like a sub item on a list changes.
You're mumbling. I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I was facing away from my microphone. My bad. I sometimes do that.
I have arrived.
Welcome.
Hey, Endo.
It's a full house.
How's everything?
Everything
good.
on planet Earth?
I'll let you guys talk while I try to read through chat and see if there's anything I should read out loud.
Mojo, I sent a few links in Discord about an inject.
Yeah. But
Be everything you
So-
need to get it working.
well, that parameterless constructors working yesterday, and I forgot what I did, and I messed it up. I did get that working the way I wanted. However, your links, well, I don't know. I don't understand what .NET Standard's supposed to do, what I'm supposed to be able to use in framework.
.NET, everything that you can do in .NET Standard, you can do in Framework. Standard is a subset between Framework and I think .NET Core 1.
So that
So it's like the
that
shared
DI,
portion.
yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know about Microsoft Extensions dependency injection. I'm not sure how much code is in there. I know that my issue that forced me to pick Ninject was that I needed to have it working with web forms.
Right.
And I didn't find anything else that supported web forms. So I went for an inject.
Gotcha. So
Oh my gosh.
if what you're saying is, and I don't know if this is a safe assumption, is that, well, let's say, is it possible that I wouldn't have to use Ninject since
Could be,
that's a
yeah.
standard package? Okay.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's not in Framework. It's just, it's from Microsoft.
Okay.
But it being from Microsoft doesn't automatically mean that it's better, right? It's just a framework, and a lot of people use it. I would assume that the documentation on anything from Microsoft is way better because so many people are using it, but Ninject and Nlog and all of those are also very popular. I think the idea is from Java, and then they're more or less ports. So it's like the same APIs and everything that's in the Java version, only for .NET.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, because I was, well, like, for instance, the HTTP client, because a lot of the other stuff I was able to figure out well.
Yeah. Again, I didn't know that HTTP Client Factory was a part of
Standard?
what's the face? Of Standard, yeah.
Yeah.
Weird. I wouldn't have thought.
I did.
But system.net.http is part of standard then?
HTTP client?
System.net.http.
What's
That
in
namespace.
there?
HTTP.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
The names.
HTTP client is 100% supported. Yeah, of course. Since it's both in Core and in Net Framework. So the reason to use Net Standard is to simplify a move from Framework over to, .NET. If you're planning to stay on Framework, which I would really not recommend, then
But sometimes when you're working
you
on
can
a team,
ignore
you don't
that.
really have the choice.
No, I'm not saying that you have to move, but I'm also saying that you shouldn't plan to not move, if that makes sense. Staying on it has downsides, but don't keep building yourself into that corner. Try to at least make a path out, even if you don't start walking it quite yet.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm not familiar enough with some of it. So like yesterday, I did try doing the whole. Well, I brought it up to like 4.6.2 for safety. I think I also tried 4.8, but just so I could use .NET Standard 2, and if it wasn't one issue, it was a different one, and I was just adding. I was doing many things at once, so I didn't know where my problem was lying. So I was able to build fine, using something like add HTTP client, just like I would in a .NET 8 application. But then when I went to actually like run it, there was like a package error with system .NET Web, and I was like, okay,
Yeah. There's
I'm
one
just gonna
thing
keep
that
running into
you
these.
also should do, and that is create a library that is like, my code dot framework, and then you hide all of the framework specific stuff in there behind interfaces, and you inject those interfaces, because then you can just replace those with new code afterwards. So you'd put everything that needs framework, the things that are not supported by standard, you hide in a dot framework project or multiple. But use dependency injection to call into there, because then you can just replace the implementation of those interfaces with something that's supported by, .NET 8,
Right.
and you go.
Huh.
So yeah, like TBD said, we went from Blazor, and on state has changed to framework.
Potatoes. To stuff that can run with a potato.
You're on Net 8 there. If you
Yes.
go up on
Yeah,
the
that's what I was
left,
looking
then
for.
can you
This
select
is
Net
exactly
Standard
what it's like.
2? It is Net Standard. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
That's
So
crazy.
you could definitely use that then. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I have
like
learned
that.
things. I always learn things, and that's why I like being here with other smart people.
Oh, working with COM objects.
In
In fact,
Why are Microsoft listing the preview packages as the packages on there then?
Oops.
That's
I don't
messy.
know why they listed preview packages in their documentation. That's new, I think. Like, why would they have .NET 9 preview listed in the documentations? Oh, right, we're on Net Standard, and the version that's in the Net 9 preview still supports standard. Right? So we're not looking at Net 8, because Net 8 would have the Net 8 version.
Correct.
But since the
But it
new
did
version
have
in
Net
Net
9 when it was defaulted to it.
Okay, so I was wrong.
Showing 9 preview. That's
That
weird.
is very odd.
Yeah. Someone was a bit early changing the documentation.
Wait, what? RTrack Blazor. That's not what I opened, is it? The current version of RTrack that is deployed, one of the apps that I maintain, that is deployed is .NET Framework 4.8.2.
Yeah.
Oops. Why didn't you take me to the actual project properties?
What are you doing with that? You are updating that to Blazor.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But depending on how it's built,
Or
are you
not
using
7.2.
dependency injection and...
Nope.
Nope. Okay, then don't touch it. Leave it and rebuild it.
Essentially, I am keeping all of the controller logic. I'm just moving it, well, not account.
Yeah.
I'm just moving it into services and then having my controllers just be dumb routes.
Yeah.
Forward to these.
And that is where you want to go, because then you can put, at least while you're moving over, you could put those services in a Net Standard project, so you can call them from the old framework version and the new one. My issue there was that I needed to keep everything in one version, or like one published version, and I need to be able to have it working while doing this upgrade. So that's why I needed to, update the old application to be as close to the new one as possible. So, and right now I'm just dealing with the deployment model, and then I'm moving over.
Yeah, luckily I get to do lift and shift.
Yeah.
I just create a brand new project or set of projects, I guess, following my typical approach. But this one is probably .NET 5, I want to say. Maybe .NET 6 was when I started the migration. Yeah, .NET 6. So you can tell that I haven't touched this for a while, but when I do get back to it, it's going to .NET 8.
Yeah, I don't think there are any breaking changes between 6 and 8.
No,
Not that
just new features that I
known,
use
at least.
all the time now.
Yeah. Oh,
Deflex is like, there are. What chat am I missing? I know TBD and Mojo and Snubble are all engaged.
On COBOL and ODBC and
I was like, ODBC is the
Calm
only thing that I
Object.
recognize from there. Oh yeah, and I guess Calm
oh,
Objects.
the old GAC TBD.
Yup, and GAC.
Yeah,
Global
that was
X
assembly cache.
Assembly cache.
Yeah, it's one of those. It was awesome when it worked, but it didn't work way too often. I mean, the whole idea of it was kind of smart, having all the versions of the assembly that you might have needed, or that you needed at some point, be saved. But then you got old versions that didn't update, and things happened, and you couldn't just open it and remove stuff to, re-add it. Yeah,
I mean, we still kind of have it for development.
Yeah, purposes. I think it's still in there. I think it's still in there.
Well, we also have like the NuGet package cache.
Yeah, but that's dev only. The GAC was on
the actual
on
systems.
Yeah. The GAC is still there, but it's a normal folder now. So it's not the super secret extra sauce explorer experience.
No, we have Windows apps folder for that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Snubble. It was the solution to DLL hell.
Basically, whenever you're worried that you're going to overcomplicate something, look at how Microsoft do things that can overcomplicate way worse.
That's what it was. That's what the first topic was. Thank you for reminding me.
But how would you have dealt with DLL clashes?
venv.
Huh?
So, what is it? Python that uses venv? So virtual environments for every application.
Yeah, and I think that's what .NET does now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
venv is the answer to all. Heck yeah.
Yeah, I like the previous one. Worked on Linux. There's no DLL hell. There's so hell.
It's just called hell.
Yeah.
That's fun. We have a lot of people on the call, so we may as well get stand-up started, since it'll probably take us until the end of stream to do stand-up. Are you guys okay with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can start out because mine is very simple.
Let's start with Thindle then.
I am babysitting a bit tomorrow, and after that, I am bashing my head against a Docker file. And that is my stand-up.
Do you need anything from anyone for the Docker file?
I need a
resources
parent.
we can point you to.
I got you.
I need an adult.
Mojo says he'll meet with you in the parking lot after.
Yeah. Yeah, we could smoke a cigarette by the cars.
My issue with the Docker files is working directories, I believe.
I think when you're using Docker. I'm just kidding.
I tried using the code deployment model, and it takes 2 minutes to redeploy code, and in the meantime, it just says gateway error, unless you're using deployment slots. But at that point, you're up to $100 a month in hosting costs, and I'd really rather not. So I'm looking into just building a Docker container myself, Docker image, and having it spin up a container from that, because that's technically what it does when you send up code. It builds the Docker image on Azure.
This is how stand-ups go.
Yeah.
We're now talking about the issue.
Yeah.
Guys.
Anyways, the file is in the web project. It works when I build the image from Studio, but when I try to run it from a pipeline, it can't find the other projects because the paths are from the root of the project, but the file itself is in the web project folder. So yeah, that's my issue and working on it.
Cool. Mojo.
Yeah. Yesterday I was bashing my head against the computer. Today I'll be doing the same, trying to understand what
Thindle was telling me while simultaneously reading wrong answers on the internet. Thindle,
If you need
feel free
help,
to
then
message
just
me.
holler.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say the same for you. Feel free to message me because I think I ran into that last issue you spoke on. I think I have an answer for you, but I think it would help if I had like a screenshot of something, or if I don't know if it's in GitHub. But I have many experience failing with Docker, so I've learned a few things.
Much appreciated.
Looks like he's done. TBD.
Yeah, so this week made some progress on adding the comments in Liquid Sky. Going into next week, going to work on getting the changes stuff all done. So that's all moving ahead, and I have no blockers.
Awesome. Deflux.
Cool. I've been banging my head against some code. I've been subconsciously trying to improve my side projects so I can use them as talking points a little bit better to like better learn. So what triggered some of the earlier questions about how the underlying stuff in Blazor works. So just so learning away, just learning, and hopefully I'll be getting somewhere at some point, but then we'll see.
And he's done.
And Umberto.
So I will be rolling my face across the keyboard, not banging it, but hoping that some good code comes out as I keep updating the current application I'm working on to .NET 8. I'm almost done. Just a couple of runtime errors that I need to clean up and replace the authentication mechanism for the current scaffolded one. It's going really easy. I recommend it to anyone who's upgrading from any .NET Core version, from say 6 and above. It's pretty simple. Just create a new project and reference all of your external libraries, because I know that that's what you're doing. I have no idea where my phone is. There it is. And yeah, I definitely don't have any blockers. Just want to keep having fun. And that's it for stand up. That said, anyone have any last words that you'd like to share with everyone? Talk about your stream, self-promote, anything.
I started doing Blazor in my main project last stream.
I saw.
And I got it
admin
working
pages.
in a subfolder, which I also got a bit annoyed with because the base path is case sensitive.
Yeah,
So
that was weird. That was a
find the
weird thing.
application, but it won't run because the base path is in the wrong casing.
We walked the plank with our eyes wide open. Cool.
But now I have Blazor. Next step is adding auth, and then go from there. Mojo, didn't I just say that I wanted to keep my hosting costs down?
Aspire.
What?
Yeah.
You can just use it to build and publish. Well, I don't know about the .NET project. If you can publish that as a Docker file, but it does a lot. It can do a lot for you if you want it to.
Yeah.
Mojo, did
No, it's a monolith.
TBD.
sure if,
Someone else was saying something. Deflex.
I was gonna say, Mojo, did you have a chance to check out the Aspire 8.2 that got released yesterday?
No, I've been in framework all week, and I don't want to wish for things that I'll never be able to touch for
Oh,
a
you
year.
sound so depressed.
It's everything I run into in framework is because like I know the core way of doing it, or like the .NET 8 way of doing it.
See,
and
all
I
you gotta
just don't
do,
have.
easy solution is all you gotta do is create a nice was it socket connection, and then just do it in .NET and then send it back. Just call the method.
Oh,
socket
just
connection.
use YARP or something.
Yeah, just send. Yeah, so do like a app, when you run the app, just start the .NET Core part of the app running, and then just do a socket connection between the two, so they can call methods back and forth, and then you just send it over to .NET, do whatever you got to do, and then send it back.
Look at gRPC, man.
Yeah,
we don't have
TBD.
we don't have anything in place at work to
That
I
was
mean, like,
partially a joke.
what are
but-
interfaces? Oh, well, see, yeah.
But I used to my old job. We had an app that did just that. It was a .NET standard, a .NET Framework app, but all the business logic and everything was in .NET Framework. We didn't have time to redo it, but we wanted to use .NET 8 or .NET 6 API, so we just created a socket connection in the back end, had a little messaging service that just sent the method over with the object, and had a little messaging service on the framework side that picked it up and handled it, and then sent it back to the .NET Core side.
100% a valid solution.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
All right.
I'm gonna use Yarp.
The entire point where I'm coming
Yeah,
from
Yarp.
is not stopping your entire app dev for a year and a half while you're doing the upgrade.
That's 100% what we're gonna do. I did talk to my boss about it today.
Stop the dev?
Well, sorry, stop new features on the current thing while we
Okay.
while we just shift over. But I don't. I think a lot of the problems we run into today are
Blazor, I'm
going to
down.
make it over there because we're not improving something. We're just rewriting something entirely with no data on if this needs to be improved versus this. So, but that's actually, well, I'm not going to take up too much time.
Then
But
I
that's
have
my whole
one
reason
thing.
I
for
do
why
need
you
to end the
extended.
stream now. It was
Yeah.
supposed to be a self-promotion for your next streams and stuff like that, but I gotta get
Yeah.
going.
Just one last word. If you're doing a... Wait, where was I? Never mind. I lost my train of thought.
Well, we do
It
have
happened.
Discord, which you are a member of. You have your
Yep,
own channel, even,
100%.
and we'll rate
Yeah.
it.
Awesome.
Razor editor, though.
So I'm going to
Yeah,
jump
it does
out.
have issues.
Thank you very
Cool.
much for having me.
Yes, and thank you all so much for being here. I really do appreciate it.
Of
Love the
course.
conversations.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much, Meta.
Yeah.
Ah,
Take
Thank
care,
you.
guys.
Subway.
Bye.
Wait. Awesome. That was really, really cool having you guys on here. I really do appreciate all of the contributions you have to Community Day. You guys make it what it is. You make this channel what it is by being the amazing peoples that you are. We're going to go ahead and raid Big Gamey. He just gave us a shout out. I mean, we just gave him a shout out. And we just got a shout out. Okay, so thank you, Dukasoft. It all happened. We're gonna raid over to him. I did that before I started waving and even getting to my ending scene. But why what? Why raid Big Gamey, or why deploy it on ACA? Oh, probably part of another conversation. Anyway, thank you all for being here. I hope you enjoyed your day. I will be posting the VOD for this to YouTube at some point after now, and you're always welcome to join our Discord. I'll be back again on Monday for some Blazor software development stuff. We've been applying the UI redesign, and working on applying the responsive styles to our current UI. So yeah, we'll have more fun with that. Hopefully we'll be finished with that soon, so we can move on to upgrading the stream project to .NET 8, just to show how simple it can be. What else? And then we'll move to working on work product on stream and see where that takes us. Okay, and make Mojo cry some more. Look, it's simple going from .NET Framework to .NET Core. Oh, okay, ciao for now.